All right. Um, why don't we drop in the chat our presentation outline for each other? I believe I have it as public view, but let me know if you can't open it.
Okay. Oh, that's
And then I'll share my screen with my portfolio.
okay. I was able to open it.
Okay, awesome. I will check with mine. I'm not really sure how to get my portfolio um, to be a public view.
Oh, I actually was doing this before, actually. I think.
Oh, is it preview?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, let me just double check to make sure I can also open up yours. I think when I finish sharing my screen, I'm gonna open it up because I don't know how to get out this presentation mode.
No worries.
Sorry. Okay. Um, I'm ready to share my About Me page.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right. Hi, I'm Audrey, and welcome to my portfolio presentation. So, a little bit about me is that I'm going to begin my seventh year as an elementary school teacher, and I'm going into my fifth year as a fifth grade teacher this coming school year. So, throughout my teaching experience, I found that the most rewarding part of my profession is building relationships with my students and helping them recognize their own potential. I also love being a teacher because I have the opportunity to support my students not only academically, but also in developing their own confidence and finding their interests and achieving their goals as they grow into lifelong learners. So, this connects to three of my major teaching interests, including social emotional learning, restorative practices, and community involvement. And throughout my entire MSED program experience, I've been fortunate enough to take courses that not only focus on at least one of these interests, but they also challenged me to think about how they can further improve my teaching practice and myself as a teacher. So, one area of my life that has shaped the way I am as a teacher is my background as a student athlete and a tennis coach. So, I have that here at the bottom. And so, tennis has taught me the importance of perseverance, patience, and learning from my own losses. And as a coach, I've also learned that every athlete needs different drills and techniques to better their own game. So, likewise, in the classroom, I know that students require catered feedback and instruction to grow. And when I was a fifth grader, my fifth grade teacher has also been inspiration to me with her love of reading and writing. I have this right here. As a reluctant reader and writer, my teacher was really able to help me see that writing was a creative outlet for myself, and reading also helped me explore new experiences. So while each student's learning journey is different, and I don't expect their journey to be anything like mine, I hope to help my students be open-minded learners and persevere and have a growth mindset so they can achieve beyond their limits. So throughout my learning at Marist, I was also able to develop and revise my teaching philosophy, which centers around three major ideas: teaching with a growth mindset, encouraging student-led and inquiry-based learning, and fostering positive school-to-home connections. So in teaching with a growth mindset, I model positivity in my classroom and encourage students to value their mistakes and welcome challenges as opportunities to learn. I also believe a growth mindset is essential, not just for students, but for teachers as well. So if we expect students to embrace challenges, believe in their potential, and be patient with themselves, we should also model that same belief throughout our actions and lessons. Secondly, I value student-led and inquiry-based learning. I believe students should have opportunities to ask questions, explore ideas, and communicate with one another and take ownership of their own learning. So this has really become important to me throughout my master's program here because I've learned more about how student choice, collaboration, and inquiry can create opportunities for students to demonstrate their understanding in meaningful ways. And lastly, I believe in fostering positive school to home connections. I think it's so important for families to be involved in their child's learning and development, especially when their child's learning doesn't just begin and end in school. So, and I know families bring a lot of valuable knowledge about their child. So, in order to better understand my students, I should definitely build strong relationships with my students as families so I can better support my students in school. And ultimately, my goal is for families to feel comfortable to communicate with me so we can ensure that their child has a successful school year. Um, some highlights I would like to show you with in my portfolio come from core propositions 1 and 2. So in core proposition 1, um, my contemporary ed issue in education paper from MSED 640 helped me examine how dominant narratives and cultural perspectives in curriculum can influence who's being represented. And that speaks volumes when students in the classrooms have trouble identifying themselves in instruction or they struggle to relate their learning with their own lived experiences. So Ladson, Billings, Gay, and Mollett all taught me that culturally relevant pedagogy, culturally responsive teaching, and students' and families' funds of knowledge can help me create more equitable, inclusive learning experiences. And this also helped me better understand my learning from MSED 690, where I explored language acquisition and the development and the importance of valuing students' home languages and discourse. These experiences contributed to my growth in core proposition 1, dedicated, and developed my artifact think, pair, bridge, share because they challenged me to think more intentionally about how I can value my students' identities, experiences, and language in my classrooms to build on the learning. So I'm going to show you that. If it will load, I don't know if you're able to see it, but here's the artifact. Okay.
Hmm.
And my second artifact is related to core proposition 2. It is my stained glass mathematically rich assessment, which demonstrates how my thinking about assessment and student autonomy has developed throughout my learning in this MSED program. So throughout this artifact in my MSED 662 action-based research on student option choice and science performance assessments project, I explored how giving students options for demonstrating their understanding can encourage autonomy and ownership over their own learning. And this connects to Montessori's emphasis on giving students freedom and individual choice as assessments, and it doesn't have to look the same for every student in order for all students to still meet the same learning objectives. And this supported my growth in core proposition 2, knowledgeable, because I'm now more intentional about understanding how my students learn and how I can design assessment and daily instruction to provide students with option choices. And here is my lesson plan for the stained glass creation. The first page of the directions show that students have different option choices they can pick from when they complete their project assessment. And ultimately, my journey through Marist as a graduate student has helped me become more reflective in how I teach. And I continue growing as a professional, I hope to carry this knowledge with me by creating a classroom where my students feel supported, I can foster their curiosity, and help build their confidence as a learner. I also hope that as I gain more experience in the future, I can also share my knowledge with my colleagues so we can work more collaboratively and support the development of all our students in my school. That's my presentation. Okay,
Wonderful. Very nice.
thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
Sorry, I think it's my service, so sometimes sorry, can you hear me?
Oh, that's okay. I think mine is too, or maybe we're just in different time zones. Let me know if you want me to repeat
I think
anything
we're
or
just
if
a little
anything cut
laggy.
up. Okay.
But honestly, I think like, and I just talking to other girls in this course as well. Like we were surprised whenever you would do your discussion posts about how long you have been teaching, and like 7 years already. So I feel like you probably have a very good like grasp on teaching and in the classroom. So I think my biggest question is like how would you compare your teaching versus like how you feel now? Because I feel like, I mean, I'm going into my second year, or at least I just started my second year, and I feel like again with like all your core propositions and like they're very like authentic. If I mean, look, it even says authentic experiences right there. So it's just like I feel like, would you say like from your first year to your seventh year, like how different do you feel, if that makes sense, or like comfortability wise too?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So to answer that question, I guess I'll start from the beginning. Like, I know that I've been teaching for, I guess now almost 7 years, and I will say it did take me until like my 5th year for me to really feel confident and like go in every day and think like, okay, I know what I'm doing. Because I will be honest, like there are days when I just don't know. And I've asked my other colleagues who've had roughly like 10 years and they agreed the same. They're like, by my fifth year, that was when I knew. Um, but I will say every year when you st like collect artifacts from students, you try different lessons, you add on to a lesson the next year, like you gather more learning experiences and like teaching practices that can help you. So definitely like when I create like, for example, my authentic experiences like in core proposition 2, I didn't talk about this one in my speech, but I created a Columbian Exchange inquiry design project. I did work with a few other members in our cohort with this, but I did have background knowledge of teaching this lesson, and I collaborated with a few of us who also had experience as well. And we were able to develop like stronger like student exemplars, stronger like higher order thinking questions, and even just like student activities just based off of what we knew. So like some of our inquiry ideas in this project were more hands-on, but we were able to be more intentional with like how to scaffold because we had experience like knowing our students. Because sometimes when you like develop a lesson, you have like such a great idea and then you like try it out and it's like a complete flop. And we're like, okay, I didn't realize my students weren't ready for that. Or we're like, wait, my students like were way too ready for that. This lesson took 30 minutes and I still have 25 minutes left and you don't know what to do and it kind of just like ruins the mojo of your entire day afterwards because the class is a little bit chaotic. So just like having that experience and then saving it. Like we've saved a lot, I've saved a lot, and then every year like I have like a file of different like Columbian Exchange inquiry activities, and some activities I'll definitely use based on my overall class's strengths and skills. And then other times I might not use it at all if I think it might be too easy for them. And maybe some I'll just save just for like a small group or like an enrichment day if I know that it's more challenging and maybe we might need another day to do it. I don't know if that really answered your
Mhm.
question, but yeah, I just,
No, it
definitely like I would say if I could give advice for also like a newer teacher, like don't feel like you have to do everything all at once.
well, and that's what I've been saying, and I think I mentioned it a lot in our master's courses as well, that like most of my like coworkers have either been working for over, you know, they're on their 15th year, or I think the youngest is like their sixth or seventh year. And so I feel very like, the newbie, and it is a little uncomfortable asking for questions. It's almost like I wish I had another like first year teacher alongside with me. So it's like we both can just not know what we're doing together instead of like exactly what they're doing. But no, your clarity was excellent in your explanation of that. So I really appreciate that. Um, I guess should like can I go into like different core propositions that I saw of
Yeah, of
yours
course.
from I really liked your core proposition 3 um responsible, and it was your exhibit the stakeholder one, the facing data report.
Yeah, okay, this one.
I thought this like I don't know, I really because again like data I think is just like I don't know, I think it's hard to master it, but just because every student is so different, so it's very like it's just intricate in how you're gonna like examine each student and like what they need to be almost assessed on. But I really did like what you went through with this, but how do you feel like it almost goes hand in hand with this core proposition, if you wouldn't
So
mind going deep?
of course. I just need to remind myself, core proposition 3 is responsible. So actually, when I developed our stakeholder-facing data report for our course, I know we were encouraged by our professor to use data, like if we had prior data in our classroom. So fortunately for myself, I did. And with this data report, I actually collected like real-time data on my students' like call outs. So I'll click on it. So like I literally had the data spreadsheet with number of call outs that the student made. And it was actually part of like a potential behavior like intervention plan that we were maybe going to look into. So I just had to make sure that I had the necessary um, data just to back up the maybe conference that we would have. And then I implemented like my own I can't think of the words. Like I implemented my own strategies to support my student regardless. And then I thought about how I could talk to my students' parents about this as well. And this is all like the name is all a pseudonym, please know that. But parents and I were like in constant communication with with their child's growth and development. Um, but when I was developing this data report, it definitely helped me grow in this core proposition because I just better know now like my students and what to look into in my students and also how I can effectively communicate my professional concerns, but also how can I make sure that I have like an action step towards it. And I want to always make sure that when I communicate with my students as families. Like I'm not trying to act like I'm complaining. I'm not trying to just only spread like negative comments because there's more to that negativity than just negativity because there's so much more that I can celebrate about their child's growth and achievements and goals. And that's always one thing that I focus on, like their goals. And even developing the little like the data collection, my student knew that we were doing it. Like I had a really strong rapport with that child as well. And we talked about like, okay, our goal for you is to make sure that we have less call outs. And so he was being very self-aware and always asking me like, okay, how many call outs did I have? And then at the end of every day, we would share the different like records throughout the day and we would like reflect on, okay, man, like science today was really bad. Like why was that? Okay, how can I help next time? And then just putting that into the data report as well and communicating that with my students' families also helped make sure that our expectations and the way that we communicated and helped their child stay consistent in the classroom and even at home. Because I know at home he was very involved in like after school baseball and other extracurriculars and like sometimes homework was a challenge. So parents also noticed similar behaviors at home, so we worked together to find solutions with that.
No, that's awesome.
I'm not
Actually,
really sure if I answered your question again. I'm sorry.
did a really good job. Again, I was just like, I feel like I'm very old school, and anything that has to do with like data remotely or like anything on the computer, I don't know why my brain just cannot like understand it. Like I almost prefer like paper everything, but I really just enjoy looking at your different like spreadsheets that you had and whatnot. And I definitely here in Hawaii actually, I don't know if it's everywhere, but we have to have a mentor for our first 3 years teaching. Um
Oh.
yeah, and like it's actually really helpful where she kind of like comes in and once a week, and we just kind of discuss like how am I assessing my students, like what kind of data am I holding on them. And she's been kind of trying to show me different spreadsheets like that, but I think yours has been like one of the first ones that I liked the organization of it all. Like you did a really good job, especially like it really like individualizes that student and like their needs, their goals, especially when you do have like whether it's IEP meetings or like parent teacher conferences, just being able to like put up that spreadsheet. And like again, leads into my next core proposition, which is the CP5 that you did. But just like how important it is for like that collaboration with parents, and I'll go into that with my own portfolio. But I loved your like student shout out email that you had for that exhibit. And I keep like mentioning it. Actually, I was talking to my coworkers about it, and like I don't know if you felt this way when you were younger too, but like I don't remember my teachers ever, unless I did something like above and beyond, but like I feel like my teachers never really, it wasn't really a thing to like send out like, oh, like Johnny did something really great today, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
my mom, I remember it was just like one of those like sayings like no news is good news. And like my mom didn't really have, or my parents never had an issue with like not hearing the positive feedback. They just like kind of took my word for it that school was going good, but I could see how that could backfire when you're never hearing any positive reinforcement, and then it's you have the kid where they're always getting into trouble. And um that was one of the things. So I really like the like student shout out, if you wouldn't mind going into further detail about, like, I'm
Sure.
assuming you implement this into your classroom as well. And I also want to know, like, what's the balance of it? Like, do you try to do it like one student a week, or like, everyone gets a chance, I'm assuming, and you know.
Yeah, okay. I could definitely answer those questions, and I please remind me if I don't answer a question. Um, so I agree with you. My experience growing up as a student, I've never heard anything from my teachers. And I don't take it like against my teachers. I think that was just like old school, and most of the time it was more like you would contacted via cell phone or home phone. So like it would be very almost like inconvenient if you were to have to get a phone call from your school, or it almost sounds like an emergency because every time I do have to call home, I always have to reassure my first thing is like everything's fine, is now a good time to talk, versus like an email. And so definitely I do send out these emails to track my student shout out emails. I actually make like a little Google sheet or like a spreadsheet and I write everyone's name down and then I just write down like shout out one and then I just make it check. I typically write down the date so I just know like did it happen in the fall? Was it in the winter? And then I just track like how many shout outs I do. I try really hard not to like just focus on one student. Like if I know a student's really struggling, like behaviorally, socially, academically, what have you, and they just show a lot of growth, I also don't want to show like favoritism. And I want to treat all my students equally. And I know that some students really keep these emails for themselves, but you never know. So I really just try to make sure I like stagger them. So I also make sure that all my students have a chance to get a student shout out. So even if they might be having like a really tough week or like a tough month, there's definitely always like I can count on my hand like at least 5 to 10 things that the student has done regardless that has still shown me that they're capable, that they're kind, that they're, like just a great student overall, and like a maturing and developing child, and they deserve shout outs. And I think these shout outs really help build confidence for students, especially if students like are having difficulties in school. It just boosts their confidence. Some of them like have incentives at homes, which definitely helps me on my end as well. But yeah, I make sure that all my students, before a student receives like their second shout out, I make sure that all my students in the entire class has received their first. And I just do that just to make sure that if any students do talk about it, they all know like, oh yeah, like Miss Chen gave me a shout out once too. So then they feel like they're also included and not left out. Um, so I'll click on my student shout out. So I keep it pretty short because I don't want to make a very lengthy email, then it just gets overwhelming. But I always mention like one or two specific details that really stood out to me with their child, whether it was like the past week or like just the same day. I always still mention like, okay, there's something that we could be working on still, just to maintain that like, okay, like just because they did awesome doesn't mean like we're done. So I always want them to know that myself and their child are still working towards something more. And then I always end with like, I'm so proud of them and I hope they're too. Just so hopefully my student parents can relay that message over to their child as well, so they feel proud of themselves. Because again, it's like you said, like I don't think it's very common for students to get email shout outs about good things that they've done. When it comes to parents receiving these emails, they're usually really excited. So it's like what you were saying and like what we've experienced or haven't experienced. Like it's pretty new, I think, still, and I don't think a lot of teachers like keep this practice in their own teaching practices, but I think it's something that can be really helpful. And it definitely helps you stand out as a new teacher or like a novice teacher. And it also definitely helps you like staying that communication line with the families. And they definitely always know like, okay, if something, like not great has happened, they know that like you're still intentionally there to support their child because of your prior communication and showing that you've cared a lot and you pay attention to the small details about their child. And it really does, I think, support the idea that like communication doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It could just be like, hey, just letting you know like this happened today and it was awesome. Just keep
Yeah.
it nice and
No.
short.
And then I could even notice like last year when we had our parent teacher conferences, like with my resource and inclusion classes, I remember I was sitting in on some of the resource classes and she was someone who didn't really implement this. So it was kind of like, you could tell it was like her meeting the parents for the first time. It was like, not an awkward interaction, but just that like they had not really like spoken at all versus
Mhm.
going to classroom, and she was someone who really valued like talking to parents at least once a week, giving their child that positive feedback. And we have parent teacher conferences in November, so it's like a good depth within the school year. And like you could just tell like they'd come in already a little bit comfortable with the teacher, like they kind of are like they had that feeling of like, oh, like this is someone that's taking care of my child. And I feel like just witnessing that, like even if it's just like, it doesn't mean as much to us, it's like, oh, just another thing we can send them home with or send out to them. Like I really do think it makes all the difference for the family side of it. So
They
no, very well.
definitely, yeah. I've had responses where they've mentioned stuff like, thank you for taking care of our child for like noticing this. I even had some just like express their gratitude for like taking like time out of my day to send this email out because I guess, like they know that we're busy. And so like we didn't have to say anything good. Like we could have just told their child and then they went home. But like it's true. Like I spend maybe like 10 minutes, I take a long time with my emails, but 10-15 minutes like thinking about this, making sure that it's like the perfect message that I want to send, that I put like my heart and soul into it. And they can definitely tell. And I think it definitely like strengthens the family side of the relationships, and it definitely supports your relationship with the student because they also end up finding out as well.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, and just like not that awkward interaction with their teacher, like, do they like me? Do they not? Yeah.
They get excited, yeah.
No,
Um,
but I really appreciate you answering those questions
sure.
because I do, and I feel like we have a very like same morals when it comes to the classroom too, just like the priorities of whatnot. So you're very clear with all your statements. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm gonna stop sharing. Oh, did we want to share feedback? Or I guess you kind of share feedback with me now.
Um, I'm really horrible at constructive criticism. I would just
That's
say
okay.
all around. Um, I mean, it is hard to like fit in like the 5 minutes already, but
Hmm.
you kept your eye contact, which was very well. Like I could tell that you were speaking at me, and like it wasn't even just like a robotic way. Something that you're definitely very like passionate about when it came to it. The originality, like just when I was going through your portfolio as well, like I was just very like just impressed with all the different exhibits that you had. And I think too you're someone within this course who has a lot more experience than some of like the girls that are also like this is only their first or second year teaching. So I can tell you from just from other conversations, like the amount of times that we're like, oh, like did you see like Audrey's discussion posts, like
Oh
we're just
no.
oh, all good things. We're always impressed with like the things that you have to say. And I think we almost like look up to you in a way of like
Oh, thank you.
very good job of always like your cleanliness and whatnot. So yeah, very good.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Okay. We're still recording. Okay. Scared me for a bit. Okay, now I can open up your outline. Are you able to share on Zoom on your end?
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
Or maybe,
I do see share.
okay.
Oh, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing. Is there a way that you're able to switch it?
Yes. I just need to figure out how to do that. Okay, I believe I did it. Can you try that again?
Or um, okay, can you see it?
I can. Perfect.
Beautiful. It's right where I want it. Okay, beautiful. Let me start my timer. Um, okay, and you can see everything just fine.
Yes.
All right, wonderful. All right, this is me. I didn't know that you also did a sport, but I did track in college. So I'll go all the way back to, my whole, background with Marist. So it really, I kind of, everything happens for a reason. In high school, I wanted to be a cop, actually. I wanted to go into like the police force. Um, and I was also a dancer. And I got cut from the dance team, and then COVID happened, which kind of like swayed me. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to be a cop anymore. And I actually ended up joining the track team, which then led to me wanting to become, well, my mom was a teacher. So I always wanted to be a teacher because of my mom. And so after the whole cop situation, I was like, you know what? I think I actually want to be a teacher. And because of getting cut from dance, that actually led me to joining the track team. And then I got a scholarship to go play track at Marist. So it's one of those things that, I probably wouldn't be here in Hawaii if a lot of those things had never happened before. So I am a little bit grateful for that. But like I said before, yeah, like I always had an interest in teaching from my mom. She was a science teacher. But definitely my own experiences as well. I remember coming home from school every day and I'd line up my stuffed animals and, pretend to be a teacher to all of them. So I think deep down there was always like that love that like I knew I wanted to be a teacher. But I think something that, also helps me right now as a teacher is just my youth and, kind of being able to relate to the kids as much as I can, like I can still remember what it was like to be a kid and like the things that I liked in the classroom, the things that I didn't like in the classroom too much. So I think I have tried to bring that into my own teaching right now. And, I remember like not really having a say as much as I would have liked to towards my kids or when I was a student at least. So now I definitely try to prioritize that with my own students right now and having them have a say and like asking them questions and even like just apologizing, if I don't get something right on the first time. Like I think things like that are so big and like they are kids at the end of the day, but they're also human, and they're gonna become, and I think that's what's so important is treating them like human, not just like as little kids. So me down my but I've been teaching here in Hawaii for this is going to be my second year actually. So we started our first day of school last Monday, and it's been so rewarding. And here in Hawaii, we actually do things a little bit differently. So we have resource and inclusion. So resource are the pull out kids, and those are the kids that get minutes with me for reading and math. And then inclusion are the kids that they stay in their gen ed classroom, but they also get special education minutes with their we call them EAs, but I think on the mainland we call them TAs. And so it was definitely something that I needed to balance because it wasn't always something like I was used to. And it was something like I'm very much a visual learner. So I couldn't wait to be able to like be in the classroom and see how it takes place. So it definitely has its pros and cons to it. But I definitely do appreciate the flexibility it gives me, and it does give me my own classroom, which I really appreciate too. Like I get to do my own style instead of just going based off of what the general ed teacher does. So I'll go into my teaching philosophy. Um, so my teaching philosophy, like I feel like it, sorry, one second. My teaching philosophy, like I again with like being young and having more to talk about with the kids and like being able to relate with them. I definitely do believe that every student is capable of more than what they believed in sometimes. And I think sometimes they really just need someone that believes in them. So I really strive to create a supportive, positive, and inclusive classroom environment where students feel safe, they feel valued and respected, and they're encouraged to learn. And I feel like, especially being a special ed teacher, um, they already come in with low confidence, especially having resource where you pull out the kids. They do have that negative connotation, like, oh, like this is a bad thing. Like I'm getting pulled out because, I can't keep up with the rest of my kids, or with the rest of the students. So, I try to bring them in there and never treat it as something to be ashamed of, that it's like we're here to have fun and everyone learns at their own pace. Um, and definitely just, I try to promote a growth mindset by encouraging students to embrace the challenges and to learn from those mistakes and to understand that their abilities can grow, especially through effort and perseverance. And that any big or small win is, it's still a win and it's something to be definitely proud of. So I definitely try to keep everything very like student centered. Um, I try to model what I teach, and I feel like I'm very a hands-on learner. So I try to incorporate that as much as I can, but I also definitely try to switch up my learning styles as much as I can as well for all the different types of learning styles within my classroom. Okay. And then here is, I'll go into my CP1. So my first core proposition, an exhibit that I really enjoyed, was the dedicated one, and my theorist was Lanson Billings, whose work was on the culturally relevant teaching, which emphasized building meaningful relationships with students while recognizing and valuing their identities, backgrounds, and experiences. So I did my exhibit, which was a beginning of the year family welcome letter and student interest survey. And I included this because, again, it takes a while to understand the student, but I definitely want to incorporate my students' interests into the curriculum as much as I can. And I feel like that goes such a long way within the curriculum and within like students' learnings, that they feel like that they can identify themselves in the lesson, and feel valued within it. And I also feel like just being able to like hear from the families. So here I'll click on it. Not that one. Sorry. Sorry.
It's okay.
Guess I all got all mixed up.
Take your time, it's practice.
Okay. Yeah. Good thing I'm doing this now because
hmm
I'm so confused right now. Okay, here. I'll go into my CP5 and then I'll go back to that.
Okay, that works.
I flipped it. Okay, that's why I was confusing myself. Okay, this one, I'm talking about my CP5. All right, so we'll go into my CP5. This one is the beginning of the year welcome and interest survey. My mistake. So I sent this out to my students recently. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay. I sent this home to my students last week, and I give my parents my phone number. I give them my email, because I really do like. I mean, I honestly prefer like text messages because that way I can like answer as quickly as I can, and I do think it's more personable because I want to have that relationship with my kids' students. Oh my gosh, what am I saying? My kids' parents. So I let them know a little bit about me. And I even asked them like, what do they hope from me? throughout the school year. And a lot of them do say like just communication, you know, and I do think it is a bit intimidating when it comes to communication with parents. But I think I do try to envision my parents as if they're the ones that I'm talking to, and it becomes a little less scary because at the end of the day, like all these parents just want, you know, someone that's gonna love their child as much as they do and care for them and, you know, want the best out of them. So I really do like these, and I try to do as like intricate of questions as I can. And a lot of the times the parents are very open and honest about their child with these things. So I do appreciate that as well. And it gives me a little bit of a deeper understanding of their child. Um, Before like I even actually get to teach them. So and you know, if they come into school and they're having a hard day, it's one of those things that like, all right, I already know that, you know, something might be going on at home, or that they're struggling or they don't eat breakfast in the morning. So, you know, it's different things like that that give me that insight that I don't always have to ask. I just automatically already know. Um, okay. Now that we got that out of the way, now I can go back to C I think I was on CP. Okay. CP1, silly me. Okay. So this one is my student interest inventory at beginning of the year, all about me, self-portrait. Okay. I really like this. So it's cool because you get to have like the students, it's one they're writing about their interests, but also the way that they see themselves. And this is where like the Lansing and Billings, where it's like, you know, you're building that meaningful relationship, but you're also like being able to recognize their identities, their backgrounds, and their different experiences. And then I think CP5, that one was Mall et al. Funds of Knowledge, and she explains that families possess different values and knowledge and experiences that strengthen the classroom learning when teachers intentionally build partnerships with the people around them. And I think kids really do feel valued when the adults around them show that they care. So yeah, sorry, I know I went on way too long.
Okay. It was nice to like hear more in depth like your thinking process when you were like your throughout your entire like teaching journey. I feel like I didn't know and I would never have known like teaching wasn't your first career that you wanted to pick from. It actually wasn't mine either. I was like undecided for the longest time. But it's so interesting to see like everyone's different like teaching journeys and how that shapes you, you know? And I can even imagine like if you wanted to be a cop or a police officer, like you definitely had a lot of like strict morals. You're definitely very like punctual, very organized. I can see that in your portfolio, like your entire website. When I was looking at it earlier, like it was so organized. You have everything like all concisely put as well. I'll save all that feedback for later because I can go on. But talking about your portfolio, can you talk more about your tic-tac-toe choice board that you made? I believe it was in core proposition 4. I thought that one was really cool just because I've done something very similar, but I've always like struggled a little bit with choice boards, even though that is something like in my philosophy, I'm like, oh, I want to encourage like choice. But how did you go about designing the different specific choices, and how has that de helped you develop in CP4 systematic?
Yeah, I think I want to say I mentioned that in one of my can you see the tic-tac-toe one
Yeah.
now?
Yes.
Okay, that of that. So in my school we do something called RTI. And again, like I said before too, where I really want to value all the different learning styles. And again, I feel like growing up, it was always just like the one size fits all. It was a lot of like test taking, or, you know, and especially now with like computers, I do see that a lot where it's like any free time or any like, oh, you're all done. All right, go on your computer, like get like work on any work like that. So different things like this actually. I actually last year I collaborated with my students to build this, and just kind of get an understanding of like different fun activities that they might want to be interested in to be able to show their knowledge. So like I'm a movie person. I love movies. So something I would probably pick is the movie poster. And then like I'm still showing what I know, but it's in some way that like it's in a way that I'm passionate about, that I can put my own, ideas into it, like my own personality into it. It's not just cut and dry, like this is what the teacher wants to see. It's something that I can look forward to, but I'm also hopefully giving my best effort in it as well. And that's what I hope for with the tic-tac-toe board, is that, and that's what it is too, is that once you've done one, um you can't do it again. So when we keep like continuing the RTI each week, they would have to choose a different one. And then I do try to do these things like, at when they're done, or like, for example, the movie poster, I would try to put them around the room, and first one to get to like three in a row gets to like, choose their own activity for the next RTI Wednesday. So it's definitely like it's entertaining at a lot of points too. Um, and I liked being able to collaborate with my students on building this. Because again, I feel like a lot of kids don't get that freedom to do the things that they want in the classroom. And even though a lot of this is still educational, um, it can almost not feel as educational when they have options that go along with it. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I really like that your options like cater to different students' like interests, as you said, or like hobbies and even like their learning styles, like maybe like the movie poster, like maybe having a little bit more like illustrations is helpful. And then like I saw one at the top right, it was like listing questions, like maybe, and I can envision this for my fifth graders, like they're like, Miss Chen, do we really have to write a whole paragraph? Like just jotting down five questions, like you're still demonstrating like reading skills, like questioning, wondering, thinking deeper, like after, like post reading. And I see like a lot of kids would like that one as well, or like the comic strip one that would definitely be engaging as well, especially for my comic book lovers. So I thought it was
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think I'm gonna update it, and I think because it was so easy, and I was able to give them some ideas on different things to make, but I think I'm gonna, when we start implementing RTI again this year, I want to try and incorporate like my new students, like what their interests are. Like one of my kids loves Pokemon cards, so I do think I might, maybe create different flashcards, and they get to create their own Pokemon card and incorporate to a lesson of some sort. So it
yeah.
is and fun for me, because it's like, it's like a little activity, and I think the kids really enjoy it too.
Yeah. That sounds like a good idea. Or even have like the kids try to make it for you and then you use it and then they like take ownership and like,
Mm,
they feel really excited and then, they engage with it more, because like I made that.
yeah, no, absolutely. Here's that.
Another question I had, it's a bit of a more deeper question, but did you feel like there was a core proposition that was more challenging to develop throughout our program? And if so, why?
That's a good question.
Because when I was going about, especially with our portfolio development, because that was when we definitely had to like think strictly about each core proposition. Some of them I was like, oh, like CP5, I have developed a lot more in that in the past 7 years because it was like one of my weaker points before. I was always afraid of, communicating with families because I always felt like I looked so young that, they would often challenge me. So I
Uh,
really like honed into that area the past few years. So I feel like with CP5 now, like I felt more confident developing that versus like other CPs. So I don't know if you had the same thought or like something different.
yeah, I definitely would go into C3 responsible, which again, hand in hand, I think that also goes along with being, a younger teacher. So right off the bat, we don't get as much respect from the students as we would if we were, older teachers. And I would see that as soon as I walked in the room, I could just tell that like, the kids were like, oh, now we can joke off, like, and now we can fool around. And it was like I just didn't feel like I had the authority that the older teachers did, but I also have to take full blame as well that I didn't have the organization or the behavior management skills um, to understand how to go about those different types of behaviors. So even for example, like um, that was something my mentor had, was having a weekly morning meeting schedule. So that's one of the exhibits I have for my CP3, because I would just want to start the day and I was just like, oh, like, let's just wing it. Obviously not really, but it was kind
Mhm.
of like, I was like, well, it makes sense in my head, so the kids will just go along. But she really educated me, and like, and even through these classes too, that like kids need structure. They need, like, as much as they say that they don't, like, they do actually really appreciate it. And like even just as small as seeing, all right, what's going to come up next, like that's something that just goes such a long way. So that's what I've like really like put emphasis on, is just being able to like tell the kids, even if it's just like writing it down, like up like 8 to 8:30, this is what we're doing, 8:30 to 9. That like it really does matter to students seeing those things. And I feel like that, because right, like morning was one of the most important things in the day. It's like being able to start the kids, on the right foot, doing the right thing. Oh, my dog's having a nightmare. And then another big thing was my classroom problem solving reflection sheet. This is another thing that my mentor really helped me go through. Oh, sorry. I'll go through I'll just show you my weekly morning meeting schedule quickly. So, and I really enjoy doing these things. And we even had like a speaker come. We had a faculty meeting yesterday. And something like she was saying, like, she really talked about how greetings in the morning are such a big thing. And like, even just so my principal actually wants us all now, it's like standing outside of our classroom, and any sort of greeting that they want, whether it's like a fist bump, a high five, like an air hug, a real hug, whatever, like. And they were going through the data, and saying how, like, I think I'm probably going to mess up the percentages, but that like it was like raised by like 30% all the behaviors. Like, well, I guess it decreased the behaviors, but there was more engagement throughout the day. Because I guess beforehand they were spending so much time trying to go individually, while the kids were doing their morning work. Whereas like right as they're coming in through the door, you're already getting started. So it really goes a long way. But then my this it Yeah, so I had a student last year who couldn't really regulate his emotions, and I was having such a hard time with it because, I felt really bad, but like also he was being extremely rude to me. And there was like at certain points, there was one day that he hit me, he would scream at me, he'd throw his computers at me, and I was getting so emotional because it was like I have done nothing but try to be as kind to you and do anything that, like, to prevent this from happening. So I was taking it very personally. But then after talking to like counselors, the principal, even his parents, it was definitely something where it was like it's not anything that I did. It was just internally he didn't know how to regulate those emotions or even be able to express those emotions out loud. So my mentor actually helped me create this problem solving reflection sheet, just to go based off of like what was he feeling in that moment. Like even if like what kind of emotion was he feeling, and he was also on the spectrum too, so it was something that I really needed to balance as well, because sometimes he didn't even really know what emotion he was feeling. It was just all bubbled up inside that he just like had to get out. But I think this really helped because, again, it was data that I was able to show his family, like, oh, this was a day that we had, but, he was able to tell me that he was feeling really frustrated. Um, and then giving him that responsibility of like, well, what could you do better next time? Like, what could you do differently? So I think this helped with our relationship so much better, that it wasn't something where I was like lashing out at him or like, blaming myself for something that had happened. And I was able to look back at these things that he would fill out, and I would still empathize. I'd be like, oh, this, like, the poor boy, he, like, was feeling left out after recess. So then he came back to my classroom and then lashed out at me, but because, they didn't let him play with him or something like that. So I definitely, it was still such a work in progress because, they're kids, they're unpredictable, and sometimes they feel things just because they feel like it, but, it's definitely was a step in the right direction. So, yeah, again, I hope that answered your question.
No, it did. And I can see that like through your response, you're being very reflective and that definitely, that's part of like who we are as graduate students and as like professional teachers now. Like we are reflective of what we've done in the past, what we want to try in the future, and what you're gonna try maybe like tomorrow because you have school. But I think that's like really admirable for you to just like think about like, okay, how did things go before? What can I do better? Like, and you admit like, okay, like maybe the way that I felt with that student, like it wasn't my fault, but like what can I do to help them move on and how can I support them and continue with parent communication? Um, I had another thought, but it slipped my mind. Anyways, I have one more question. I had like five, but I want to make sure I respect our times tonight or this morning for you or daytime. I don't know.
No, it's you, so I'm
Early
sorry.
evening. Um, so I'm looking through which question I want to ask. For the final question, I want to go back to your teaching philosophy, and I wanted to ask, how do you see your teaching philosophy reflected throughout your entire portfolio, and how has it evolved throughout your time at Marist? I know that when we first engaged in our portfolio, I believe in MSED 512, I think that was with Dr. Scher. We were asked to like just like draft our philosophy a little bit, but now as we're at the home stretch here in MSED 612, we like definitely enhanced our philosophy and definitely took the time like with our introduction that we just did, and then even thinking about like how we can connect it with our CPs and core standard reflections that we've been refining. Do you think like your philosophy like changed a little bit? Do you think you were able to strengthen it more? And then like in which areas in your portfolio do you think it like really also shines?
100%. Very good question. Um, if I'm gonna be honest, I had so many doubts throughout this program. Even like from like junior year and senior year of college, I was like, is this really what I want to do? Like my first teaching philosophy, I think was just like what I thought, my professor wanted to read, not necessarily something that I actually believed in. And I don't know if this is something that you agree with, but when I went and did my student teaching, the amount of teachers that were like, is this really what you want to do? Like, is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? And I was like, I'm a senior in college right now. Like, I hope this is what I want to do. But I was comparing myself so much to my like classmates too. Like, again, going back into discussion, I would be like, I'd read people's discussions. I'd be like, they just seem so passionate about their teaching. And I was like, I don't know if I have that. Or I would see like the Canva slides that they would make for just student teaching. And I was like, oh, like, like I wasn't in my like my tech phase yet. So I was like, I don't know if that's, I don't know. I was very comparative of like, they seem like a better teacher than I am. So I definitely felt I was being more selfish, I think, as a teacher when I first started this portfolio and wrote my philosophy. That it was like, again, what I had learned in all my classes. So it was like what I thought you wanted to hear or what I thought my professors wanted to hear. And then how I kind of switched my philosophy was honestly like last year was my first real experience of like, yes, like this is what I want to do. But because it was like I had no one in my ear telling me what to do, I was able to make my classroom my own classroom and treat my kids the way I wanted to treat them. Um, and it was like, and it made me realize like the students are like it says like it's so simple but it's like the main reason we do it is for the students and like I like the amount of like IEPs I sat through last year, and I would just cry, and I was just like, I'd finish afterwards. I'm like, I'm so embarrassed, like, but it wasn't even like anything bad. I'm a very emotional person, so just talking about their child and like, oh, I'm gonna get emotional now, but just like talking about their child and like just like how much I had seen them improve throughout the year, even like when I would do their transition meetings for them to go off to middle school. Um, that was just like, like me telling the middle school, like, this is what they need. Like, it was like my own child, like sending them off, and I think that's what really changed my um, philosophy was like, the whole reason we're here is for these kids. Like there's no right or wrong way of doing it. And my main goal is to want these kids to want to come to school, especially teaching special education. Like I know it's going to be difficult for them. They know it's going to be difficult. So like the one thing I can try to control is the environment in my classroom and like them feeling like they belong and like enjoying coming to my classroom as well, especially teaching in a resource setting where they have to unfortunately like be taken out of their general education classroom. So the beginning of the year is always tough because it's so embarrassing. I have to go in and be like, hey, like time to come out. So it's like, it draws so much attention. But then even last year, by the middle of the year, I didn't even have to go and get them. The kids would come out of their classroom and like just, they couldn't wait to come in and be in my, so it definitely warmed my heart. And it helped me realize that like that's why I want to do it. Like, care less about all the, you know, other things. I can work on my teaching strategies, my work on my behaviors, but at the end of the day, I really think about like the environment and the comfortability of my students is like my biggest thing, if I worded that correctly.
Yeah, no, I understand it. And it sounds like the overarching theme, like what you were saying, is that it's all like centered on the child or the children in general. So like developing that warm classroom environment, you want it to be a warm classroom environment for the children. And like how is it going to be comfortable for them? And that's what you're considering. And even like your previous example with your other student, like you still considered your child like they're going through a lot of challenges and sure like you're being like emotionally hurt and like it's not targeted at you but you feel targeted. It's really hard not to. I feel the same way sometimes, but like you still set that aside because you're trying to make sure that the child feels comfortable, is able to feel safe, can still learn in their classroom like the next day or the next hour because you're centering it around them, and it's like you're putting yourself to the side. Of course, you're with them, but like everything focuses on them, even like your teaching strategies, like you're catering it to them. So I think
Mm,
that's really awesome. And I can see that like throughout your different one CPs 1 through 5, like all of your artifacts, like the family letters, all the different activities, like you've considered the students like all the time and it's very obvious.
thank you.
Okay. I think we're almost at that time, so I'll just share some quick comments. I jotted it down on the rubric, which I can send it to you when we finish our meeting as well. And then I also have like 2 other questions that I didn't ask you, but if you wanted to use it just to practice, I'll send it to you
Okay.
like at the bottom under like the other comments section of the rubric. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, of course. So overall, like your dialogue was really clear and like very easy to understand and super relatable. So like when you were talking, giving examples, like it just felt like a very good, like comfortable conversation. Not like a strict presentation. So I think that's great. And then you continue to show great eye contact from like our video screen. You had great body language when you were presenting. Again, it seemed very like open and comfortable and also very engaging for me. And you continued to also, I know you mentioned that like you could shorten down your about me stuff, your introduction, but so can I. But that's why we're practicing. Just to give some context, I remember like we were 3 minutes in and you were still like talking in the like about me portion. I think it was
Wait.
um
Okay.
if that made sense. So like when we were like in 3 out of the 5 minutes, you were still on like the top portion of your teaching page.
Yeah.
I think I did that too. It's hard. It's hard to like, because you want to share so much about yourself because it's your portfolio.
There's
Um,
like build up. You got to get to the build. But yeah,
yeah, I know it's hard. I'm gonna have to like figure that part out too myself. Um, when you were speaking, you had a really good like personable style. Like I can tell from the way you talk, like you are really passionate. And I know you were saying like, oh, well, like I'm so nervous about the other people in our cohort. Like, stop. I know, like, because you're one of them. I'm like, oh, like Marissa's like, she's on it. And you always seem to know exactly what you're doing. And I can see that like right now in our presentation and just our casual conversation right now. You are really passionate. You are someone that really cares and like loves your profession. And yeah, there's like challenges that are gonna like make you second guess for an hour, but regardless, like I can tell that you're in it for the long run. Um, and when you had a really good like narrative style when you were sharing your portfolio and your philosophy, which also shows like the values that you hold, and it made it really relatable for me as like a listener. I also thought that you connected your philosophy to like personal experiences as a teacher and as a former student really nicely. So that just connected like all your course learnings and then also like showed like how you were able to reflect on yourself as a student so you can help your current students. And then I thought overall when like the flow of your introduction was really nice. It was smooth. And then when you like switched from like the about me to like your philosophy to your CPs, like that was very seamless. I know there was like that technical glitch, but besides that, like I think just speaking wise, like you were able to connect it really nicely. Like I didn't even realize at one point we were already on the CPs. I was like, oh, so I thought that was really nice.
thank you.
Um, yeah, that was it. Cool.
All
Awesome.
right. What-
Um,
This was, I keep reminiscing because it's like this might be one of our last
I
things to.
know. And I remember I was looking through your portfolio and I saw your oh, I forgot what it was called, but that project that we worked on together, we did like the five like artifacts. It was like
Yeah.
developing a culturally responsive classroom and like the five little activities. I
Hmm.
was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, wait, I know that I have the same one. And I was like, wait, we were doing it together. I was like, oh my
Uh,
gosh. I was like, oh, that was so long ago.
oh, it's like it's kind of like it's really sad, like end of an era,
I
but
know.
we're
Moving
ready.
on. Yeah,
Yeah.
moving on. You're ready. And I think one other thing that I wanted to say, because when you're like talking and like before you were like, oh, I don't know if I'm like doing it right. Like, I think you know what you're doing. Just be confident in yourself.
Thank you.
Because
Hopefully,
I understand it's like really hard because every day you're like, what am I doing? Or like no one else is in the classroom with you and you're like, there's a tornado brewing in the classroom and you leave and you're like, oh my gosh, the whole world knows.
yes. Yeah.
Happens to me like every other day. But people always tell me like, "Oh, I thought you had it like you're fine." So I think like you're confident, you got this from your portfolio and like your artifacts that you shared, like you know exactly what you're doing. You are not afraid to ask for help. Like you have your mentor, and I think that's really important. And I think that like you're doing all the right things, like asking questions, seeking advice, being reflective. I think that's very awesome, very admirable.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I hope to be in your shoes in 7 years when I
You
know what
will
I'm
be 6 more
for.
years. All right.
But
I can end this recording first. Let me end it.